Good afternoon and welcome to the Market Wrap for Monday, the 13th of July. Look, today the Aussie market barely budged. By the end of the session, we're up by something like 2 points. So we almost couldn't be flatter today. So ending at 8,808 points. Now, it must be said we were up by around 0.1% earlier on in the session, but we did flick into negative territory for most of the day. So I was actually going to say it was our fifth decline in 6 sessions, but as you just saw there, we did just flick into positive territory by the end of the session. So not quite ending lower, ending almost completely flat. And of course, this does follow quite a modest decline over the course of last week when we were down by around 0.4%. Now, looking across the different sectors today was quite divided in terms of sector performance. As you can see there, we did have our tech sector doing worst, down by around 2.5%. Utilities not too far behind, down by 1.6%, but of course it is our smallest sector, and materials down by roughly 2/3%. But look, on the flip side, we did see energy stocks tracking a jump in oil prices, which were up about 3.5% to a 3-week high at around $79 a barrel, given the state of what's happening in the Middle East, and of course the uncertainty around the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. Other sectors that actually performed quite well today did include the telco, so communication services up 0.9%, and almost tying with the consumer discretionary sector, which was up by a very similar margin. And I should mention as well the financial sector, which did help to offset some of the losses elsewhere, up by around 0.2%, and we did see the 4 major banks actually lifting in today's session. Now, looking at some of the individual performers, Mesoblast was the top performer on the ASX 200, up close to 5%, and this is after receiving a broker upgrade today, and this follows last Friday's strong fourth quarter results and outlook. Plus size women's retailer City Chic actually soared by close to 30% after its latest trading update showed stronger sales and improving margins, which sort of boosted investor confidence around the company's turnaround. Corinne Energy jumped after announcing that it restarted its oil production in Brazil, but also benefiting from higher oil prices. And Genesis Minerals emerged as a winner today after it actually won the bidding war for Vault Minerals after Regis Resources chose not to match its rival bid, and that cleared the way for the proposed merger between Genesis Minerals and Vault Minerals. So you can see its share price up around 3.7% today. Vault also higher, but Regis Resources a little bit lower by the end of today's session. Now, looking at some of the losers, Xero slumped by around 4.5% after its CEO sold off all her shares in the company, citing personal tax obligations as the reason for disposing of the shares worth over $2 million. And this comes just a month after selling $4 million worth of her shares, citing the same reason. Now, Xero shares are down by roughly 40% in year-to-date terms. The worst performer today, though, was gold miner Kingsgate after announcing an unexpected mechanical failure at its processing plant in Thailand, meaning it's been taken offline while the company investigates the root cause. It did also separately announce that it achieved its FY26 production guidance, but that wasn't enough to help its share price as investors await any updates on the impact to production guidance and timing for repairs. So Kingsgate down a whopping 13%. Elsewhere, ResMed was a wait in the healthcare space on no official news, and Origin Energy and AGL were drags in the utility sector after receiving broker target price cuts. Now, looking to currencies, you can see they are all slightly lower. The Aussie dollar currently buying 69.3 US cents. Now, looking ahead to tonight, it is looking like a soft start to the week for Wall Street. So US futures pointing down a few hours before trade kicks off. At the moment, Dow Jones futures pointing down by 0.2%, the S&P 500 futures pointing down by around 0.5%, and the Nasdaq Nasdaq set to open lower by 1.3%. There's not too much in the way of updates tomorrow locally. We do have some business and consumer confidence surveys, which will get at least some attention, but really things start to heat up from tomorrow when we get some of those bank results out of the United States tomorrow night, and also US inflation tomorrow night as well. So it could potentially be a fairly quiet day tomorrow locally, depending what happens tonight. But of course, all eyes will be on what happens in the Middle East. And if any tensions flare up there, that could certainly drive what happens in our local share market tomorrow. Have a nice night.